I will skip the introduction mostly to save our time. We only have 30 minutes and we honestly need to discuss, so let's be a little bit efficient. I'm from Germany, so let's be as quick as possible. Only we need to introduce one person which you might not know. He's called Jason Shu. He's a crypto congressman in Taiwan. That's a nickname provided by Vitalik, right? And we just added him to the panel. He's not on the paper because he's like one of the progressive regulators, let's call it that way, or legislators. Yes. And to summarize people's CVs, I made an analysis and it said, you're all entrepreneurs, multiply, you are all deep into technology, and basically this is the joint pattern in all CVs, and I think let's immediately start with the discussion, right? Okay, so we did a preparation, and first of all we would like to talk about the status of crypto as you view it in your country, in your industry, and maybe everybody provides a quick statement about his opinion. We already heard 2 speeches. You're welcome to add things, but maybe you start, John.
Sure. So IOHK is a global company. We operate in 16 countries from Argentina to Japan, so we tend to have a global view on cryptocurrency regulation and blockchain regulation in general. What we've noticed over the last few years is that regulation has become considerably more mature and thoughtful. Jurisdictions that you would assume to be ignorant or overly forceful, like the United States, which has traditionally been the case, have actually been somewhat more lax than you would expect. Other jurisdictions, even in jurisdictions like China, for example, which have been a bit heavy-handed, still do have a desire to embrace this technology. So it's actually quite surprising to see how much consideration and adoption that's happening at the governmental level. There's still a lot of challenges, like definitions of assets. What is a utility token? What is a security token? Challenges about custodianship, like what does it mean to own a cryptocurrency? Does it mean you possess the private key? Is there something more to that? And then challenges about intellectual property. For example, if you have a smart contract or a DAO, can that own property? So for example, if I was to tokenize intellectual property, and could I have a smart contract own it and then give dividends and actually has legal rights? And we're seeing all kinds of sandboxes and SRO approaches, or governments themselves regulate these things. So it's really impressive to see how fast the globe has moved on this phenomenon, much faster than the internet.
Mm-hmm. You would like to add?
Sure. So I visited a lot of countries recently. I think we have seen, in the last quarter, we've seen really an uptick in the number of countries that have turned into be very positive towards blockchain. I think my discussions with them usually focus on 3 different things. Classification of cryptocurrencies, which is quite difficult. I think any traditional classification will make it really difficult. How do you deal with ICOs and how do you deal with exchanges? And I think right now we're seeing really a positive change now. At the beginning of the year, I was a little bit worried that a lot of countries may be very negative about it. But I think now the countries luckily do realize there's very huge economic benefits to it. For example, the top guy in China says that we want to develop blockchain now, even though last year they said, well, they're kind of against the cryptocurrency exchanges. Japan legally recognized Bitcoin as a legal currency, even though their rules on exchanges are a little bit more strict. Korea hasn't met too many rules yet, but I think it will be very favorable. So I think Malta is extremely favorable towards blockchain. And many other countries in Europe are very, very favorable. So I'm very positive about it. Mm-hmm.
I think we're all on the same page here. So people are starting to wake up and realize that this is a powerful technology for the world, and even governments are realizing that. So that's fantastic. And even as someone who's not really a big fan of the idea of having governments at all, I've met with several heads of states to tell them about the benefits of this, and they're excited and interested about it, and it's great to see. And I guess my biggest regret is that there's been this giant delay in the adoption of digital currencies caused by the scaling debate that I covered in my presentation before this. And I feel like we could have had much more adoption around the world and use of digital currencies in commerce had we not run into that roadblock. But we can't change the past, but we can all work together to build a better future. And let's do it as fast as we possibly can, because I have more gray hairs as each year goes by, and I want that better world to be here as quickly as possible.
Please put on. 네. 사실 이제 대한민국의 많은 분들 같은 경우는 왜 이렇게 대한민국 정부가 규제를 강하게 하는가, 이렇게 어떻게 보면 독설적인 발언을 하는가 궁금해하시는 분들 많을 거예요. 근데 사실 2년 전만 해도 이 대한민국 어떻게 보면 뭐 사단법인 핀테크 산업협회라는 곳에서도 이제 정부 측과 조심스럽게 암호화폐에 대한 제도화에 대한 논의들이 상당히 긍정적으로 이루어졌습니다. 조심스럽게 이제 샌드박스 같은 것들이 구성을 해서 암호화폐와 이 거래소의 이런 성질을 규정을 하고 그것들이 법적인 테두리에서 보호를 받을 수 있는 과정들이 충분히 준비 중이었습니다. 그런데 이제 어떻게 보면 건전한 생태계를 유도하는 쪽보다 그 사기와 유사수신, 다단계 등의 이런 업체들이 이 시장을 흐리기 시작했어요. 그러니까 지금 뉴스에도 많이 보도가 되고 있지만 사실은 수조 원의 돈들이 아마 그렇게 나쁜 세력들을 이용해서 사용이 됐었고요. 그렇다 보니까 많은 민원들이 정부 당국으로 들어왔습니다. 바로 그렇게 신고들이 많이 들어오게 되는 시점에 암호화폐 열풍이 같이 찾아오게 된 것들이죠. 그러니까 정부 입장에서는 준비할 수 있는 분명히 초반부터 약간의 준비는 하고 있었지만 준비할 수 있는 시간을 여유롭게 가질 수가 없었던 게 많은 피해들이 발생되고 있었기 때문입니다. 그래서 어떻게 보면 이렇게 많은 생각을 하지 않으시고 이렇게 이거는 뭐 셧다운을 시켜야 된다, 뭐 더 부정적으로 나가야 된다 이렇게들 많이 생각을 하고 계십니다. 그런데 지금은 조금 많이 기조들이 달라진 것 같습니다. 처음에는 전 부처, 법무부나 금융위를 중심으로 전 부처들이 되게 부정적인 입장을 띄었다가 이제는 과기부라든지 이런 각 부처들에서 제 목소리들을 이제 조금씩 내고 있습니다. 그리고 정부에서도 지금 벌써 이 암호화폐나 블록체인 산업 진흥을 위한 9개 정도의 법안이 대기를 하고 있는 중이기 때문에 앞으로는 상당히 긍정적으로 봐도 되고요. 아까 CG 측께서 말씀하셨던 제주도 같은 경우도 사실은 제주도에 우리가 관심을 상당히 많이 보여야 되는 부분이 바로 이런 부분들입니다. 저희가 송도에도 스마트시티라고 해서 경제특구를 건설한 적이 있었죠. 그런데 사실상 한국의 법 안에 있는 경제특구이기 때문에 어떻게 보면 이 홍콩과는 완전 다른 역할을 하는 부분들이 있었습니다. 그런데 제주도 같은 경우는 특별자치도예요. 특별자치도이기 때문에 이 육지라고 하죠. 보통 이렇게 내륙에 있는 이런 다른 광역 지자체들보다는 훨씬 더 유리한 입장에 있습니다. 그리고 요즘 같은 경우는 이렇게 제주도가 어떻게 보면 되게 불황이 찾아왔어요. 경기적으로 불황이 찾아왔기 때문에 그런 경제를 다시 부양시키고 그리고 가장 강력한 자치특별법이 있기 때문에 그쪽에서 한번 이제 뭐 ICO라든지 이런 크립토 밸리들을 조성해야 되겠다는 움직임이 있기 때문에 올 하반기가 좀 지나간다면은 대한민국에서도 가장 또 빠른 혁신이 시작되지 않을까 그렇게 생각을 하고 있습니다.
Okay. So I think in the crypto and the blockchain world, government plays a very crucial role. If you think about the cryptocurrency, it's really an exponential technology, but our government is a linear organization. So what we need to do as someone who is working in the government, who's been a technology entrepreneur, I believe that government must evolve as the technology evolves. So government must understand in the world of crypto, if you want to stop it, it's impossible. It's like as if you were to stop mathematics. So government must give up the notion that we will try to clamp down or crack down on cryptocurrency. Number one, you must learn with it and grow with it. I think that's government's number one notion. And secondly, with the growth of this industry, government should understand the very concept of empowering the people rather than keeping it at the hands of the few. So how do we make regulations and legislations that are empowering everyday use of cryptocurrency, increase the frequency and the situation of use cases? And some of my friends here, they are all great champions and they're early adopters of cryptocurrencies. So I believe two things are important. Number one is light touch regulation. For example, in Taiwan, we create a regulatory sandbox. And now we are coming out with the ICO guidelines in September to allow good actors to be able to take shape and really to work with the progressive governments. And secondly, I think industry as an important receiver and givers must come together to self-regulate. As I share, this is such a new industry and the technology is changing. It's growing very fast. And that doesn't negate the fact that blockchain has its own limit and constraints. So that's why at this very early stage, industry must come together to self-regulate. I encourage all of you to create self-regulatory organizations and talk to your legislators and to help them understand what this industry is about. And hopefully, by working together, we can create a new world and allow the new money to help the old money and really empowering the youth. So I believe cryptocurrency and blockchain are creating opportunities for tomorrow and for the future generations.
Okay. So to summarize, I think everybody agrees that government is more and more taking a more constructive approach. So we have consensus here, right?
Correct.
So we need to discuss some more hotter topics. So we talked about it previously. Some people say, you see this also in Europe, for example, some people say blockchain yes, Bitcoin no, or you hear the sentence blockchain yes, crypto no. Does this make sense to you? You know, like, is it something you have to view in a combined way, or can you really disentangle blockchain and crypto? What's your opinion on this?
Who wants to start? Okay, well, I look at it for, IWHK is a technology company, so we build protocols, and some of those end up in cryptocurrencies, and some of those end up in permission ledgers. So I look at these things as, first, there's a collection of things, from authenticated data structures to consensus algorithms to how you wire blocks on top of each other, and those can be applied in a centralized, a federated, or a decentralized setting. So a lot of times when people are talking about blockchain technology, what they're talking about is, I have a consortium, maybe I'm a telco, and I have to get along with these other telcos. There's AT&T and T-Mobile and Verizon and Sprint, and our customers are going to move between networks, but we don't share the same databases, we don't share the same business logic or processes, but we need to coordinate on a common problem. Or medical records. You get sick here, I'm from Colorado, I'd have to be treated by Korean doctors. Now, how do we get my medical records from Colorado here to Korea? So that's a problem that's federated amongst people for the sake of producing better outcomes for their customers. Blockchain technology could be used for these things. Does it make sense to make these things live in a completely decentralized network? No. So when I hear that, that's usually what I'm hearing. Some cases I hear this notion that cryptocurrencies can live without a token or should live in a federated capacity. That kind of makes no sense. You can put wings on a submarine. Doesn't really make the submarine any better. And that's just madness, and that's okay. But usually it's former that I hear, and I think that's a very reasonable statement. And there's a huge progress that's going on. Hyperledger Fabric, for example, has over $1 billion worth of projects connected to it. And there's a lot of people thinking about very innovative ways to innovate supply chains and voting systems and other such things. And those don't necessarily require a cryptocurrency backend. But if you want freedom, you do need cryptocurrencies. There's no way to get away from that.
Yeah. So I personally think that, in general, there's really doesn't make sense to have blockchain without cryptocurrency. I think, as Charles said, in some private or consortium chains, you could have that. But I think that's a very, for the foreseeable future, that will be a very small niche in the market. I think the bigger market is open public blockchains and tokens, tokenized securities, etc. That's going to be a much bigger market. So in my view, there's a few different analogies I can make. One thing you can view cryptocurrency with blockchain with cryptocurrencies is the internet, whereas the pure blockchains without cryptocurrency is probably like a LAN, local area network. So it's going to be much smaller, much more confined. So I think basically today, for us, we're focused on cryptocurrency. So we as an exchange, we service people to trade value. And most blockchains without cryptocurrency doesn't have that economic effect. So I think technically it could exist, but I think for the foreseeable future, it's going to be a very small part of the market.
Yeah, and it's so clear. So maybe you can have some blockchains without a cryptocurrency, but money is the most interesting by far application here. So money is one half of every single transaction everywhere in the world. Money is how they rented the room here and set up the TV and the tables. And money is what they measure the value in all these other blockchains for, even the ones that don't have a cryptocurrency on it. So, and again, if you're interested in bringing more economic freedom to the world, cryptocurrencies and allowing them to be useful as a currency is the best tool we have to do that. So of course the monetary aspect of blockchains is by far the most interesting application, and maybe some other things will exist, but money is where the excitement is at on the blockchains. So let's use cryptocurrencies as currencies.
네, 사실은 이제 블록체인과 암호화폐를 분리할 수 있다 없다는 한 10년 뒤쯤 논의됐으면 좋겠는 상황입니다. 일반적으로 이제 블록체인 프로젝트를 많이 하면서 정부에서는 블록체인은 좋다, 암호화폐는 얘기하지 말아라고 합니다. 그런데 조금씩 스터디해 나가고 이해를 하고 있어요. 예를 들어서 한 지역 화폐 저희가 지금 그 설계를 하고 그 지방 정부에 사용하게 될 화폐를 저희가 지금 제작을 하고 있는데 거기서는 오히려 정부 당국자 입에서 먼저 채굴이라는 얘기가 나왔습니다. 이거 채굴을 써야 된다 해서 채굴은 좀 위험하지 않습니까라는 말씀을 드렸습니다. 그랬더니 이 지역 화폐를 지켜주는 사람들, 예를 들어서 지역 화폐 노드가 돼주고 지역 화폐를 채굴을 이 마이닝을 해주는 사람들 같은 경우는 사실상 이거 우리가 이 경찰 인력이 부족해서 그 지역을 지역 이렇게 자원봉사식으로 방범대원 같은 역할을 하는 역할은 아니냐. 그럼 그들에게 약간의 인센티브를 주는 게 무엇이 잘못된 거냐. 이거는 암호화폐가 꼭 필요한 산업이다라고 그렇게 인지를 하고 지금 준비를 하고 있어요. 이런 것들처럼 블록체인과 암호화폐를 분리할 수 있는지 없는지는 사실은 이 산업이 어느 정도 발전을 해 나가고 나서 우리가 논의돼야 될 문제라고 생각하고요. 그러나 기본적으로 생각을 한다면 블록체인과 암호화폐는 분리할 수 없다고 생각합니다. 그런데 그 분리할 수 없는 것들을 우리가 이론적으로 논하기보다는 우리가 빨리 상용화 사례들을 만들어서 이렇기 때문에 이게 필요한 거구나를 눈으로 가시적으로 보여준다면은 많은 분들이 그 부분에 대해서 더 많은 인정들을 하고 이해를 하시지 않을까 저는 그렇게 생각합니다.
So I think there are two layers of it. One is blockchain is infrastructure, and cryptocurrency or the projects that are run on this infrastructure are like fuels that keep this infrastructure in place and under smooth operation. So the question is, what type of project we want to allow to be run on this infrastructure? And as a regulator and a lawmaker, I believe it's important for us to understand what type of infrastructure we want to build together, and what set of rules should be in place to allow good players to drive instead of bad players driving out good players. So the question is really two things. Number one is, this is a incentive economic system. How do we ensure that everyone who is participating in this system can be benefited from it, rather than the traditional capitalism or the socialism, left-wing or right-wing arguments? But for the first time in human history, that human beings are given the power to restructure economic rules. So I think that's number one. I think all governments must study the economics behind the cryptocurrency and understand the implementations that comes with it. And number two, in terms of the currency use and all the trading that's going on and exchange operation, I believe two things are important. Number one is robust KYC and AML practice. We need to ensure that all the transactions done on the exchanges and all the operations are secured, and make sure that our users' data are protected. And that's number one. And secondly, we must develop more use cases for blockchain and cryptocurrency. And this is just not for the private and commercial use, but more on the public governance and public use. For example, how do you enable blockchain voting? And for example, in Taiwan, now we are working on the first political donation blockchain. So every politician receives their donation and record their campaign expense on blockchain. This will make politics accountable, transparent. And I think that's super important to understand it from the public governance and also from commercialization point of view.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thanks. So, concerning the discussion or concerning your presentation you held previously, there are various ways on how people can hold their private keys. You can hold this privately, you can print it out, you have it on a smartphone or elsewhere. You can ask Binance to care about your assets. Maybe in the future, traditional banking institutions might provide wallet services. So what's your expectations about the future? Who will in the future hold the private keys? Because this is, like key to possibilities of fraud and holding people's assets. What do you think? How will this develop? Who will be in charge of holding the private keys in the future? And additionally, what would be your advice to the audience? Who should hold people's private keys?
I think the technically competent people should hold their private keys themselves, and the technically competent people should build the tools to make it easy for technically non-competent people to hold their keys themselves. And at the end of the day, I think that should be the goal. But in the interim, there's tons and tons of room for custodial services to help out on that front. But the rule of thumb policy, I think, should be try to have people hold their keys themselves whenever possible.
Roger and I have been in the space long enough to remember back when it was pretty common for people to lose dozens to hundreds of Bitcoins.
Or thousands.
Thousands. Yeah, it's pretty painful, but you never make that same mistake twice. The problem with private keys is they're starting to represent more than just money. We're starting to have reasonable discussions about them representing identity and reputation and property and a litany of other things. And this is great because you're pushing the custodianship and control of these assets from centralized parties of necessity to the edges, so us. So we get more freedom with that. But with more freedom, we have to think more carefully. Like, could you imagine a reality where your entire digital life is chained to one asset, and if that gets compromised, then you've lost it? So really, there has to be a lot of deep thought into how are we going to handle custodianship and what tools do we have in our bag in the case that we trust a third party, that we don't completely trust them. It's not a binary proposition. Either they have control or I have control, and that's it. There's more of a nuanced spectrum there. You have ideas like multi-sig and challenge response protocols that you can come up with and so forth. We think a lot also about how is this going to innovate KYC and AML. I hate KYC and AML. Just to go on a slight diversion here, it's one of the most predatory things you can imagine. So you go to a business which has a relationship with its customers, and you say, oh, by the way, you have to collect enormous amounts of data on your customers. We're not going to pay you to do that. It just comes out of your own pocket. And if they do anything wrong, you have to file a suspicious activity report. So why is this related to the private key management? Well, we're starting to have reasonable conversations about, instead of saying you're just going to try to master everything about your customer, to let's treat all transactions as challenge response. So instead, what you would do is say, okay, somebody's trying to send money to my exchange to do something. You just ask a bunch of questions about that through a zero-knowledge protocol to a data warehouse. And you'd say things like, are they over a certain age? Are they within a certain jurisdiction? Is it clean money? Yes, no. You learn only the answer there. Okay? So there's going to be a lot of nuances to where does data live, where does identity live, where does reputation live, where does money live, and how do assets flow given these controls. And when I give up control, how much control am I giving up? As opposed to giving up everything, maybe I give up some of it. Maybe there's a way to recoil some of it. Also closely related is the level of privacy within the transaction itself, which is, okay, if I'm sending value to somebody, is this going to be completely anonymous? Is it going to be pseudonymous like Bitcoin is? Is it going to be transparent and open? Or is there going to be like escalation where it's completely anonymous like Zcash, but then there's some process that you could follow that if you get enough consent from the system, you can de-anonymize it. We're actually starting to see more nuance there, and I think it's tightly related to this credential question.
I want to go last.
사실 이제 중요한 부분들이 있습니다. 제가 어제 세션에서도 말씀을 드렸지만 우리가 처음에 인터넷이 생겨났을 때는 이메일 보내는 게 엄청나게 힘들었습니다. 지금 비트코인 지갑을 만드는 것보다 훨씬 힘들었습니다. 그때 당시에는 하드웨어라는 컴퓨터에도 적응을 했어야 되는 상황이거든요. 저는 그런 입장에서 지금 우리가 지금 말씀하신 부분들처럼 이 개인 키를 누가 보유할 것이냐. 지금 이 블록체인이나 비트코인이나 이런 암호화폐에 대해서 정의가 안 서 있는 분들이 많으십니다. 그리고 아까 말씀하셨던 대로 개인 키는 본인이 보관하는 게 안전하다고 하셨는데 우리가 그거를 같은 실수를 두 번 반복하지는 않는다고 하셨는데 해킹이라든지 보안의 위협은 매일 새로운 시도들이 등장을 하고 있습니다. 그러니까 내가 실수해서 없어지는 게 아니고요. 누군가가 나한테 위협을 해서 사라질 수도 있다는 이야기들이죠. 그러니까 그런 부분에 대한 산업 발전들이 많이 있을 겁니다. 우리가 그때까지는 저는 사실 요즘 드는 생각은 암호화폐를 어느 정도 특정 금액 이상은 믿을 수 있는 거래소에다가 예치를 해두는 게 현재 선에서는 가장 안전하다는 그런 생각을 하고 있습니다.
So I think the question over whether your wallet is safe or not, I think it will be resolved over time with technology. I think today what we see as the limits as to your private wallet, whether it's safe or not, I think there's a lot of learning that we can do, also from the regulator's point of view, from the investigation bureau's point of view. What I champion is a collaborative relationship between the operators and the government. A government is lacking any sort of understanding or skill set to deal with this, to be honest. For example, some scam that happened recently in Taiwan, and then investigation bureau just went and busted all the people and released them right away because they couldn't find any trace of criminalities. But the question is, how do we ensure our, I guess our regulators start thinking digitally and start thinking about what if in the future the elimination of the middleman, elimination of the intermediaries will be the norm. What would be the function of government? What would be the function of the central bank? If in the past these guys are rule makers, and what about in the future, in the crypto world, in the future where economic freedom, where liberty and where equality is created? And so I think that's really we are at a critical juncture that whether government will survive or whether government will transform. And I think it's up to the adaptation of this new thinking. And it's super important that government work with guys like this and to help them understand where the future is headed to.
Yeah, very good point. And maybe insurances could also be an interesting point, right?
Sure. So I think basically the key point is here is it's not so much about who holds the private key. I think it's about how do you keep your funds safe, and how do you keep it free? How do you have control over it? So I think that's the most fundamental thing. And I think basically today we see it. We see a lot of data that many people cannot hold their private keys themselves safe. So I think for the guys who can, you should do it yourself. And usually for the guys who don't trade often, it's easier to do it themselves. And basically for the holders. But if you're a frequent trader, or if you're an average person today, it's actually quite difficult to hold your private keys safe yourself. And I think I can speak very strongly that Binance probably have the strongest security measures. We do a lot of stuff to protect your funds, much stronger than what you can do yourself. So, and also, there are other technical difficulties as well. For example, if you own 10 different currencies, it's actually very difficult to install 10 different wallets on your computer. Your computer will die after two blockchains. Blockchains are just very, very heavy if you go the most secure route. So if you only hold one or two, then you can probably deal with it yourself. So that's why we actually encourage people to develop safer wallets in this industry, lighter wallets. So it requires a lighter touch, easier to use, but at the same time secure. So securing wallets is actually quite difficult. You got to secure from hackers. You also got to secure it from yourself, not losing it. So making secure backups, encrypted backups, making sure your computer doesn't get infected with virus, etc. So 99% of people today can't do that very securely. So I think until we evolve to a stage where we have those tools that's very easy to use, I think custodian services still remain a very large part. To be honest, I really want to get to that future phase as soon as possible because it's a huge responsibility for us to manage other people's assets, and we actually don't have any benefits for it. We can't charge an interest rate. So that's not part of the money-making business for us, but it's just a responsibility. But for now, I think most people, for most of the audience out there, it's safer to, well, you want to choose a good exchange, not a bad exchange. So I think for a secure exchange, it's actually safer to store it with the exchange.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I also take this advice. Thanks.
Great point, Suzy. And if I can shrink that down a little bit more concisely, I think what he's saying is that we should use whatever the best practices are to keep people's money safe, regardless of whether it's holding your keys yourself or entrusting somebody else. Whatever works the best is what we should use. And I agree. That was great.
Yeah. One more question. What is your favorite coin or token out there?
I think we have our favorites. I think the three.
So it's probably not a big secret, and again, I had too much fun at the pool party last night, so my voice is cracking. But Bitcoin Cash is definitely my favorite at the moment, and the reason for that is I think it has the best chance to becoming cash for the world, and in doing so, bringing more economic freedom to the entire world. If you don't have any yet, during the break, come out to our Bitcoin.com booth out there. We're giving away free Bitcoin Cash to anybody that comes to our booth. And it's really easy to use. You can use it safely. We have a wallet where you can hold your private keys yourself. It's fantastic. But that being said, I'm in favor of any digital currency that actually works as a currency to bring more economic freedom to the world, whatever one that happens to be.
I think the politicians have to recuse themselves from this question.
Okay.
Correct. No comment on my favorite digital currency. But I wanted to say that this year is the 10th anniversary of Satoshi's white paper. And I think it's really nothing short of monumental. And I think if you think about this, all of us in this room holds the key to the future. And I think if you reread his white paper today, it means giving the power to the people. So hopefully we can all live up to that expectation and rise to the challenges that is given to us.
Eva.
Oh, well, IOHK is an agnostic company. We build cryptocurrencies. We work on Ethereum Classic and Cardano, and we work on Zencash and other projects. We have some unannounced projects that will come soon. So in general, though, I've always admired and liked Bitcoin and its original instantiation. It's great currency, and it was what brought me into the space and gave me all the opportunities that I have. So you never forget your first love. I also love Ethereum. It's great currency. Both Ethereum and Ethereum Classic have their ups and downs, and Cardano's pretty magical too. But outside of the fanboyism, I love the technology. I've always loved it. It's about coordinating people all across the world that you've never met, you know nothing about, but yet somehow you can do business with them in a safe and effective way without empowering some government or empowering some trade group to control you. That's magical, and never before in human history have we had that ability. And that's what I'm most in love with. And no matter who ends up being the winner, that's like Chrome versus Mozilla versus this. Somebody will win, who cares? As long as whoever wins has the right heart and the right philosophy, that's all that really matters.
So I think as the exchange operator, I have to stay unbiased towards any coin. So I will say my unbiased opinion that I would highly recommend the Binance coin. I think the Binance coin is actually quite unique in some way. I do think there are many other. Binance coin is not really a coin, to be honest. Right now, it's still a token. We will be releasing our own chain very soon, and it will be a very special purpose chain. It's not a general purpose smart contract chain, so we will not have a smart contract. But Binance coin, even today, has some very interesting things going for it. It's the first platform token, I believe. So before, every coin's got to be on a chain doing something. But I think Binance coin proves that you can run a business just issuing a token, and that can still be blockchain tokenized. And I think basically as long as you run a strong business, create value, your coin will have value. I think there's a lot of other really good coins out there sitting on this panel and out there in this community. I want to stay relatively unbiased, but anytime you ask me to make a recommendation on a coin, that's the only coin I can recommend because that's the one I can be most biased about.
네. 뭐 이런 분위기로 가면은 말씀을 드려야 될 것 같습니다. 당연히 제가 만든 하이콘이 가장 낫다고 저는 생각합니다. 그런데 중요한 거, 저희 하이콘 같은 경우는 기술 기반의 코인이고요. 프라이빗과 퍼블릭 블록체인 네트워크의 그 프로젝트 영역을 넘나드는 프로젝트 경험을 저희가 아마 선사시켜 드릴 겁니다. 그리고 두 번째 코인을 추천하라면 저는 당연히 이 CCC가 말씀하셨던 바이낸스 코인을 정말 좋아합니다. 그 이유가 있습니다. 그냥 단지 아니고요. 금융권 그리고 가진 자들, 기득권층들이 우리 블록체인의 가능성을 아주 짓밟아버린 치사한 방법이 하나가 있었는데 바로 은행 계좌를 동결시켜버리는 거죠. 거래소의 각 국가들의 어떻게 보면 계좌를 동결시킴으로써 가능성을 시도해볼 기회조차 주지 않았어요. 그래서 생겨난 게 사실 바이낸스 코인이라고 생각합니다. 그러니까 우리가 우리의 환경을 그리고 우리의 에코시스템을 새롭게 만들어간다는 의미에서 앞으로 많은 주목을 해주셔야 될 코인으로 저는 그렇게 생각하고 있습니다.
Thank you.
It's good to not have consensus on this question, right? I have a last question, but you do not have to respond on this if maybe you don't really like the question. But who do you think is Satoshi Nakamoto? Is it like a person or a group? Is he an alien? Is it an NSA? Who do you think is he or she?
Do you know him, Charles?
He's dead. Who cares? Move on.
I think the underlying ideas of making a digital currency that anyone, anywhere on the planet can use to send and receive any amount of money with anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place, basically for free. That's what Satoshi Nakamoto is all about, and that's why I'm involved in digital currencies.
Yeah, I think basically I would really like to meet him someday, but just for my personal curiosity. But I think that's what makes Bitcoin a really decentralized coin, or Bitcoin Cash as well, less decentralized because now there's with Bitcoin nobody knows the original creator, so that's actually very very strong. So
nobody knows the original creator of Bitcoin Cash because it dates back to the Genesis block as well. They share the same Genesis block, same proof of work.
Careful,
and if you look at the objective definition of Bitcoin given in the Bitcoin white paper, I would state very clearly that Bitcoin Cash has more of those characteristics than Bitcoin Core does. And I made a fantastic video on YouTube about exactly that.
That's fine, yeah. So, I think nobody knows it's not that important anymore, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes people are just curious, and it provides a lot of skepticism.
Well, but Satoshi did something incredibly valuable. He disappeared. And never underestimate the power of that. Just when the party was getting started, disappear and let other people do things. So you don't build a cult of personality and you don't have some leader to decide where to go. And it forces you to come up with a decentralized governance point. So I think that's probably, of all the accomplishments of Satoshi, the greatest. Not proof of work, not building Bitcoin. It was knowing when to leave Bitcoin to allow others to take over and allow the system to have its own destiny instead of his. So that's uniquely amazing. It's a Cincinnatus moment.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's a philosophy and it's a faith. So whether or not who is Satoshi and whether or not he exists or not, I think it's not the most important question. But I think it's the philosophy. Like 30 years ago when Dr. Tim Berners-Lee created World Wide Web, he was envisioning a fair, just, open information sharing space. But 30 years later, the internet is now controlled by 5 giant companies. And I'm sure all of you know who they are. And you've seen what happened to Facebook leaking our information and data and selling our data to others. But I think cryptocurrency and blockchain has given mankind, humanity, a second chance to make things right. And if we can all work together to make it right, then we won't be indebted to whoever Satoshi is and the very philosophy that he's given us, and then in the many years to come and for our future generations.
Perfect. Do we have room for 2 more questions, or because we already extended time? Maybe up to the audience. Maybe we have 2 more questions from the audience coming up.
Yes, would you please? Yes, please.
Speaking to the night.
Okay.
Nope.
Silence.
Okay.
Would you please check if the microphone works over there? And while waiting for, does it work?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello.
My name is Ken Shishido from Tokyo.
Hey, Ken.
Hi. I understand there are a lot of Christians in Korea and in this audience. In the Bible, when shepherd David fought with Goliath, he picked 5 stones, but he only used 1 stone to take down the Goliath. So suppose Goliath being banking system and government today, which do you think is the only 1 stone to take down the powers that be?
What a unique question.
It's a great. By the way, Shishido is like the Bitcoin pilgrim. He's gone all around selling Bitcoin and evangelizing people, and he's incredibly well known in Tokyo.
Which Bitcoin is he promoting at this point?
I don't know which one. You figure that out. But he's been in the space for a long time, and he's a good guy. I like him. And the Pink Cow is a great place. But anyway, I'd say the stone is the concept that you don't need kings. There's a picture I saw a long time ago, and it was King Edward's funeral. I think it was around 1910. And they called it the king's funeral because he was related to pretty much every monarch in Europe. So when he died, everybody showed up. What was really extraordinary about this picture is there were these 9 powerful men who collectively controlled more than a half of the world's population and all the armies and all the money. And within 10 years, all of them had been deposed or depowered. Think about that. This is this model of how the human race should be, and how control should be, and who's in charge. And just like that, it changed. And that's what cryptocurrencies deliver. That's the stone that killed Goliath, is you don't need banks to control your money anymore. You don't need banks to control your financial supremacy. You don't need central banks to print money. We just do it ourselves. This panel alone has created more value than most of the nations in the world. So that's the stone. Whoever ends up winning, it doesn't really matter. It's the concept and the propagation of that concept to people throughout the world that will allow us all to kill our own personal Goliaths. Whether those be the local strongmen who's screwing people on microfinance transactions, or Western Union screwing people 15% on remittances to some of the poorest people in the world, or big central banks that are using the dollar as a geopolitical weapon to harm some small nations that disagree with the regime. Big Goliath, small Goliath, the stone is the concept that we're now in control, not the government.
I think if I answer Ken's question directly, I'll probably end up in a lot of trouble. I think the question is framed a little bit wrong. So I think from my perspective, we're not really trying to throw stones at anybody. What exists, and we're just creating a new choice for people. So if you want to use the banking system, continue to use it. If you want to use cryptocurrency, continue to use it. If you want to use a different exchange, you can use a different exchange. If you want to use Binance, we welcome you. So I think for Binance, we just want to provide a good system, stable exchange, a very ethical exchange, and exchange that really works and really solid that you can trust. And it's just one choice out there. So I'm not trying to throw stones at anybody or any person or any government or any bank. So we just provide an alternative. If you like it, just use it. That's it. It's really simple.
So to go with the stone throwing analogy, I think we should think very, very carefully about what the target would be, or if there should be any target at all. And from my point of view as a voluntarist, I want to see the amount of coercion used in the world minimized. So I would love to throw stones at anybody that's using violence or threats of violence against peaceful people, and only use those stones in a defensive manner. So I would be just fine if we see stones thrown at murderers, rapists, thieves, no matter what color they are, where they're living, or if they're wearing a fancy costume with, flags out in front of the building they're in. Anybody that's using violence against peaceful people should stop. And if we have tools to stop them, I think that's a good thing.
네. 사실 이제 다윗과 골리앗이라는 프레임에 우리가 갇혀 들어가면 안 됩니다. 가진 자들이 오히려 그런 다윗과 골리앗이라는 프레임을 만들 수도 있다는 생각이 들게 되는 거예요. 그러니까 우리는 약하고 너희들은 강하다. 뭐 이런 식의 생각보다는 그냥 우리는 우리의 일을 하면 될 것 같습니다. 보여달라는 걸 보여주고 우리가 산업을 많이 발전시키고 하면 될 것 같아요. 이 다윗과 골리앗이라는 생각을 하면 만약에 우리 다윗이 골리앗을 이기겠는다면 그때부터 이제 우리가 골리앗이 될 가능성이 있기 때문에 우리가 탈중앙화된 생각과 이념과 사상으로 뭉쳐 있다면 그냥 저희는 저희 갈 길을 가고요. 내년에도 이 자리에서 다시 만나면 되지 않을까 그렇게 생각을 하고 있습니다.
Yeah, so my view is, wearing two hats. One is technology entrepreneur, the other is lawmaker and legislator. I believe that it's hard to say we want to take down a system for the sake of taking down. But if you think about how economy is restructured, and it's basically by creation of new things, new technology, and new ideas, and new frontiers. And sometimes these things can be pushed to frontier and then created chaos or destructions. For example, like war or economic instability and a financial crisis. But I like to think that cryptocurrency is onto something great for humanity. However, government must play a role in this. If you think about today's cryptocurrency, it's less than 1/10 of the fiat currency used of it. And I talked to central bankers and the central bank chairman around the world, and all they are telling me is we are here to stay. We are not giving up our control on a monetary system. So where is cryptocurrency then? I believe it should be the torch rather than the stone, the torch that we pass on to tell people that even though a gigantic establishment is there, already existed, but we can create a new system that make the original system obsolete. And by empowering all of the humanity with the tools and the right mindsets and ideas to create it, I think we are liberating this sort of otherwise stagnant state of the world. I like to think that, yeah.
I think that's a very nice closing remark. And therefore I would, because we are heavily over time now, I would propose that we are now having the break and close this session. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and I think we all, including me, learned a lot. And maybe everybody's here in the break for additional questions from the audience. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.